want kicking the things out of orbit?
Oh my gosh!
One of the greatest fighters.
John Jones beat every champion pretty much ever lived.
If Khabib gets his hands on McGregor, it's gonna be that night.
Let's get into it. And an end of the week update with Fight Night Picks. As always, one half of your hosting duo, Craig Allen. You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. Sometimes I get excited about the fights on the Instagrams and the Twitters. And Matt with me, as always, normally to my left, to your right, but today he's also on my right. You can find him at Matt Allen on Twitter and Instagram. And Matt, we had to do a different show this week. And listen, if truth's being told, we're trying this as a test because we always have question mark kicks 2 hours before the prelims on Saturday. Now, Matt, I'm assuming with all of the updates that we have to talk about today, that the prelims are probably going to start a little bit later. We'll keep our show. Starts at 3 p.m. on Saturday. And we're going to be talking about all the fights in detail, offering up our final picks and predictions. But Matt, what I wanted to do today on Friday was kind of go over some of the changes that we've had this week. And this is something that we don't often get the chance to talk about on question mark kicks, because if you've been living under a rock or maybe you missed some of these updates, well, hey, I'm glad you're here today. But Matt, we've got a lot to talk about.
We really do. It's not often. Listen, there's a lot of time you'll have one fighter misses by a pound, maybe another fighter misses by 1.5 pounds. Not often you have multiple fighters either A, just not weighing in or missing by multiple pounds. It's just kind of a wild Friday. And it's weird too, because it feels like the last couple of weeks we've had less COVID cancellations, you know, like there was a little period there where it felt like every single week, 2, 3, even 4 fights were getting canceled. But it seemed like the MMA gods, they've been nice to us lately. We've had great events. There's not been a lot of COVID cancellations, and then all of a sudden today it's not even COVID, it's the scale of all things that's canceling them. So just a wild Friday.
So if we have a look at this card overall, you still have 10 fights booked. You have as many fights as you do fight cancellations. So if we can take a quick second to go through the cancellations and then pinpoint a few of them. Donald Cerrone, Diego Sanchez, that really took the cake this week as far as just overall MMA news. You had Ryan Benoit missing weight against Zaruk Adashev. That was his originally scheduled opponent. Holly Holm was supposed to be taking on Juliana Pena. Pena obviously gets the title shot off of Holm's misfortunes, so to speak. Jimmy Flick was supposed to take on Francisco Figueiredo. Flick, I guess you'd say kind of unfortunately retired. And he was a guy that I was really looking forward to seeing more of at flyweight. Roxanne Modafferi is supposed to be taking on Tyler Santos. Modafferi out due to a torn meniscus. He also had Nicholas Mata, Damir Hadzovic out. Mata due to injury. Ben Rothwell, Philipe Lins, like we said. Sandhag and Dillashaw was supposed to be your main event. And JP Bays was also scheduled to take on the man himself, Francisco Figueiredo. So Matt, those are just the cancellations. Like I said, there's still a 10-fight card. We still have question mark kicks, 3 p.m. on Saturday. But the 3 big news stories today, one, not so much because, listen, it's been covered. It's been talked about in details. The fact that our main event's going to be a 5-round fight. And when we talked about previewing this, we kind of had a big asterisk out there. And of course, it's going to be more of the conversation going forward. But it was really, we were waiting on Marina Rodriguez. Now that we know that it's 5 rounds, I guess kind of the pressure was on as to what both of these women would look like on the scale. And to me, they look pretty good. What did you think?
Yeah, I think they did look pretty good. Now, we are dealing with 2 strawweights fighting at flyweight, of course, so they're getting that 10-pound allowance, but it was nice to see both of them be professional, because, again, that's the whole reason we're making this video, is because there were so many fighters who were either, A, unable to make weight, or who weren't professional enough to even show up, and it was really good, because we talked about it a lot, all the different hurdles that not only Michelle Waterson, but Marina Rodriguez as well, they both had to jump through just to make it to fight week, so it was really nice to see the 2 people who are supposed to be the most talked about and headlining the show, they were professional enough to actually show up. And I do think it'll be interesting having it being a 5-round main event. Now, I made my prediction expecting it to be a 5-round main event just in case, but I am excited for it. We have had a few 3-round main events as of late. So the UFC has been somewhat forgiving with some fighters, at least, you know, recently with COVID and all that. But I am very excited that we are going to get a 5-round main event after all.
So 5-round main event, and it should be noted, Ludwig Klein came in on short notice, took on Shane Young in his debut, and missed weight, I would say tremendously. Weighed in at 150, weighed in at 146 for this fight, so he's right on the nose. But Matt, the major news of today is Ryan Benoit, and a guy that's fought at flyweight in the past. And I know, listen, if you focus on his long layoff, him coming back, he fights Alateng Lee at 135 pounds. I think we both agree he looked pretty good in that fight. It was a close one. It was a close fight. And Alateng Lee, very good striker. So if you're Ryan Benoit, you know, it sucks that you lost, but it is what it is. Comes back down, fights Tim Elliott. Unfortunate that you lose, but listen, that's the sketchiest fighter that you could fight in all of the UFC. And now he's coming in taking on 3-3 Zaruk Adashev, a guy that he was booked with just last year, but Benoit couldn't make it. So Tyson Nam takes on Adashev and sends him to the Shadow Realm. And Adashev actually missed weight for that fight. But Ryan Benoit today, coming in the first time, teetering on the scales, it was kind of memories of Yulia Stolyarenko just a few weeks ago. So they send Benoit back. They check him out. The medical team looks at him. And then they let him walk back out again on the scale just to kind of hang out like a surfer dude. And I'm making light of it slightly, but really it was kind of scary to see. He weighs in at 129, and then not for nothing, a few minutes later, John Morgan whispers into the MMA Junkie microphone, and it's kind of,
yeah, the fight's been canceled. They've canceled the fight.
Now, when the man in blue says something like that, you take it as law, but I was very surprised to see this. Obviously, you know, you're definitely disappointed in Benoit, but at the same time, were you surprised to even let him walk out for a second try?
It should just be a borderline rule across the board that, like, hey, if you miss weight and if you're teetering and you barely look like you can walk to the scale, immediately put that person in an ambulance and get them away. Fighting should not be at anyone's focus when someone is in that bad of shape. And we have seen that recently, too. There have been a few people up on the scale where they've either looked like they're going to pass out or have just passed out on the scale. And for Benoit, listen, that was a fight that a lot of people could get excited for. I know Adashev was only 3-3, but stylistically, that was a really exciting fight. And for Ryan Benoit, who's lost 2 in a row, that was a winnable fight for him in a career in which he really needs a win right now. So for Benoit, it just really sucks that he wasn't able to make the weight. It's just ridiculous that they made him go out there and weigh again. If you missed by that much, who cares? The fight's probably going to be called off anyways. Who cares if you got the right weight down or not? It was just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a little difficult to see. We move on from there, and Ben Rothwell is supposed to be taking on Philipe Lins. Lins obviously losing his 2 bouts so far in the UFC, one against teammate Andrei Arlovsky, the second against Tanner Bozer, where he got finished in the first round. And Lins had reportedly fallen ill. He was ruled out of the fight prior to weigh-in. So for Ben Rothwell, he threw it out there on Instagram saying, I made the weight, ready to go. Unfortunately, my opponent has gotten ill today, and the fight has been scratched. Philipe Lins, I hope you're okay and can recover. Hashtag Godspeed. Hashtag UFC. For Ben Rothwell, and we talked about this in the prediction video, these guys were originally scheduled to fight, what, about a month ago or so, 3 weeks ago. There was an injury and nobody really said who or where it was. But now all of a sudden, Lynn's out the day on the fight due to illness. It's unfortunate to see. Do you think that they pair these guys up a third time? Is this kind of like the Leon Edwards situation, but at heavyweight?
This is the worst version of Khabib versus Tony Ferguson, like the lowest version down. Now, they might put them back together. Here's the thing. For Philipe Lins, I don't really know what the UFC does with him, because I don't know if anyone's been more optimistic about him coming into the UFC and then subsequently been more critical of his UFC career than the two of us. So I don't really know what they do with him next, because you kind of have to give him what we like to consider entry-level UFC guys, either one of those heavyweights who's so far over the hill that it's become one of those easier showcase fights, or you give him one of those guys just coming off Tuesday Night Contenders. So for Lins, it is kind of hard to match him up with. And then for Ben Rothwell, listen, you could put him in there with pretty much anybody in the heavyweight division, and people are going to be excited about it. Ben Rothwell's no longer, you know, Big Ben Rothwell, the boogeyman of the heavyweight division, but he's still a fighter who can go out there and have competitive fights. So for Rothwell, I think they can match him up pretty quickly afterwards. But with Lins, hopefully it is nothing serious. And then if it is something just, you know, that he can get over relatively soon, they're going to have to match him up with like a Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Maybe they give like Juan Espino an easy fight next. Like, I just don't really know what they do next with old Philipe Lins.
We'll have to see what happens. For Big Ben Rothwell, Matt, and you say the big's not there. He did actually step onto the scale, weighed in 264.5. So he is one of the bigger heavyweights that you will find in that class of the Derek Lewises and so on and so forth. Now, Matt, the last bit of news that we have to talk about, and I would say our guy, and the reason why I say it is because he was on the show. He had the big interview this week with JHK, was Diego Faja. And while you and I disagreed on the pick, I went back and forth on it all week, really thinking about it. The fans were critical. They kept saying left guy. How could you have Faja to win? And I had my reasons. I explained them. You heard them. However, Diego Faja weighing in at 160.5. He forfeits 30% of his purse. This is the second time in about a dozen fights where he has missed weight. And he is 36, Matt. This came as a bit of a shock to me because for Diego Faja, yeah, okay, maybe you missed weight once before, and it's been a bit of time. But the guy's a consummate professional. The guy was one of those fighters that nobody really wanted to fight between like 20 and 15. Then he cracked the rankings. He's starting to get some wins. He beats Pettis. Holy smokes, sky's the limit, right? Losing to Dariush, not much shame. I mean, it's a rematch, not a huge deal. But this is bad news. This really isn't good.
And what's a really high-profile fight, too. Like, this is probably the fight I'm looking the most forward to on the whole entire card. It would be the Jeff Neal Magny or the Gregor Gillespie-Diego Faja fight. Now, for Faja, I know it hasn't been the first time missed weight, but you summed it up perfectly. Like, it is surprising. He's not one of those guys who I expect to miss weight. I understand he did it, but there's some fighters out there, and listen, I hate it when fighters miss weight just like everyone else does, but you kind of get one. Everyone gets one, and I thought Carlos Dega had his. Now, it is a little upsetting, and you brought it up too during the prediction videos. You know who looked great on Instagram? You know who looked great on the scales today? Gregor Gillespie. Like, he couldn't look more ready for this fight. So if Carlos de Faja is not 100% ready for this fight, again, I was confident about Gregor going into this week. You have no idea my level of confidence right now with Gregor Gillespie.
I threw it out there in a text with Matt. I threw it out there on Twitter in a tweet. The pick changed, and you don't have to wait for question mark kicks for that one. I'm 100% going with Gregor Gillespie. Listen, maybe Diego does something crazy in the cage. Maybe you like him as an underdog. Maybe you watched the PFL last night. You saw some crazy underdog wins, especially from a guy whose last name was also Faja and Henan Faja. Wow, what a win. But yeah, for Diego Faja, that's a tricky one. But Matt, overall, just kind of want to get a sense on this card. I mean, UFC Vegas 26, it was one of those ones that really things weren't shored up until Tuesday, going into Wednesday, and there wasn't a lot of fanfare promotion for this one from the promotion themselves. Little bit of a surprise. You know, you look at this card, I know you talked about the Faja Gillespie fight, and obviously we're still looking forward to that. The Magny and Neal fight. But if you could give me one more fight that people really have to be tuning in, really have to be paying attention to, what would it be?
So I would have said Ryan Benoit versus Zaruk Adeshev because honestly, that was a fight that I really was looking forward to going into this weekend. And again, it might not be the highest level fight of all time, and Ryan Benoit might be a little bit overrated. But listen, I thought that was still a really exciting fight. My shift is going to have to go to Cowboy and Alex Morono, though. Can Cowboy break his losing streak? That's what I really want to know, because I know he can't be in there with the top guys anymore. And yes, we might like Alex Morono more than the average people, but Morono's still... he's just a good welterweight. Like, what's he good at? Kind of everything. So it's going to be a really great litmus test to see where Cowboy is at this stage in his career. If he goes out there and looks like Anthony Pettis did against Clay Collard, then I fully expect Morono not only to win, but probably get a finish. But if Cowboy can go out there, not even look like the Cowboy who beat Eddie Alvarez or the Cowboy who beat Matt Brown, just be the Cowboy who went out there and like beat Mike Perry. That's all I need. Because if we get that Cowboy, that could be a really, really fun fight in the co-main event this weekend.
And I mean, for Alex Morono, he had a fight in his last time out where he's going against a guy who's good at jiu-jitsu, just like he is, and a guy that's really good at taekwondo, just like Alex Morono is. It was similar bases. And Anthony Pettis beat him to the punch just about every time and looked great in that fight. And for Cowboy, yes, 5-fight losing streak. He did have that majority draw against Nico Price. People were pretty critical with me about that, and I kept saying it was a loss. But listen, if Nico Price didn't lose a point, Nico Price would have won that fight. So we look at that one, Matt. I love the fight. To me, it's Mike Trizano and Ludwig Klein. Klein making weight, Trizano making weight. Trizano wearing his tacky kind of USA flag cowboy hat, but power to him. The guy walks out to Born in the USA. He loves coming from Jersey. And he's got a great hairdo coming into this one. He's rocking the mullet. So good for Mike Trizano. Ludwig Klein always brings it to all action, guys. That's my fight. But Matt, love this fight card. Really looking forward to it. We have Fight Night Picks, question mark kicks. It's tomorrow, 3 p.m. The thumbnail's out there. The video's out there. All you have to do, hit subscribe, hit the notification button, and you'll know when we go live. But if not, you want to set a timer. Maybe you've got like an old Casio watch. 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We're going to be going live with Fight Night Picks Kicks, offering up our final picks and predictions. Matt, we can find you at Matt Allen on Instagram and Twitter. Do you have anything crazy going on the socials these days?
No, not really. Just getting ready for the fights tomorrow. Again, all of the publicity around this card seems to be negative publicity. It's been about the cancellations and all that. But hey, it's still going to be one of those good cards. There's still 4, 5, 6 fights on there that you can really get excited for. So yeah, I'm fired up and ready for kicks tomorrow, 3 p.m. Make sure you're there before the card.
Make sure you're there, Matt. I'm really looking forward to it. We made the investment with the boys. Matt's actually in real time on the internet. New camera. We can hear you. You got the earbuds. I'm looking forward to it. You'll be in person tomorrow, though, so make sure you check out Fight Night Picks Kicks. You can find me at Craig Allen FNP, as always, on the socials. Let us know what you're thinking about the card down below in the comments section. Benoit misses weight. Fights off. Faja misses weight. Lins didn't make it. Main event made it. 5 rounds. Looking forward to it. I love these fights. Matt, and as we always say with Fight Night Picks,
let's get into it.